So I guess we are right on time, 8:30. So let me escape this and we will stop sharing. And I think if all the panelists can switch on their videos, and let's see if we have any questions for any of the speakers, or if any of the panelists want to comment. Alex, you're looking at the Q&A as well?
Yes.
Is there any questions that we need to address from the panelists?
Just a question.
From the audience, rather.
Yeah, just a question earlier in regards to Dr. Livingston, just talking a little bit more about clinically being able to judge kind of hemihypertrophy and whether it truly is the kind of overgrowth side or the underdeveloped side. She answered that question in the chat, unless we wanted to have a further discussion about it currently.
Person, you want to say a word or two about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be, I think it's rare that it's really a confusing picture. Typically, you know, I don't know if I'm able to give like the objective answer that you're looking for, but it's usually relatively apparent that one side is underdeveloped. Sometimes you'll see like a more gracile bone in a hemi-atrophy case, or, you know, or really just, you know, more exuberant soft tissue than looks appropriate for the child in a hemihypertrophy situation. So maybe it sounds confusing. It's typically relatively obvious that one side is either too big or too small.
All right, fair enough. Thank you. Any other questions?
Can I comment?
Yeah, please, Matthew. Go ahead, please.
There can be an issue here, and the simplest way to resolve that is to look at the body proportion. So when you have any such limb length issues, you look at the height of the patient and look at the crown to pubes and pubes to heel. And just like the Vitruvian man, you look at the arm span gap within 1 or 2 centimeters, that is balanced. So if it is a very minimal distance, you have no way of knowing it by this technique. If it's a significant difference, yes, you can make out by looking at the body proportions. Do they measure up in terms of arm span, crown to pubes, pubes to heel? If they measure up to the normal body proportions of a normal human being, then it is, the ratios are fairly fixed. This is known to the artists. These body proportions are fairly fixed. So once you know that for a patient, you can make out which is abnormal and which is normal.
Okay, great. Thanks, Matthew. Any other questions or comments about the other speakers? And while people are thinking, I just have one for Tony. Oh, go ahead, Matthew. You go for it. Yeah.
Since I'm talking, I would like to continue.
Yeah, please go ahead.
2 issues. When it comes to research funding, that's a huge challenge, because to access governmental research funding, which is anyway very minimal, is a challenge for people around this part of the world. It's a small amount given to a small group of usually governmental institutions. So the non-governmental institutions, where a large number of people do work, accessing that becomes a problem. Then you can say you can access it by now what are known as corporate social responsibility areas. But as a person who's been keen on doing research, I have tried accessing research, money for research from NGOs. It's practically impossible. Nobody wants to give you money for research. They're willing to give you for care of a patient, one patient, 10 patients, or braces, or implants, but they're not willing to give for research. They want to have money spent only on tangible, known outcomes, nothing else. That's one part.
Yeah.
It's a real challenge.
So Matthew, let's open that up. And I don't know if Rick wants to comment, because I think with IGOT, they've sort of established this sort of model of academic partnerships. And I think they've done a good job with, high quality randomized, studies. So Rick or others, do you have any?
Yeah, no, I think That's a problem. That's a huge problem, and we know that, and you know we're all academicians here, so we have that understanding that knowledge comes from study, but that doesn't translate to the philanthropic arena, which is where the vast majority of these NGOs are getting money from donors, and they're and they want to see nice pictures of, as you say, individual deformities fixed, and that's great, but it doesn't answer questions that we all have. And I think Dr. Cooper's, that's the interesting work that comes through partnerships and comes from universities who are now collaborating and partnering with other academic programs in other countries. So we have to lift up those academic programs in Africa, in India, that will help to maybe disseminate some of this funding a little more equitably. It's not equitable at all. And we certainly can't get money from our NIH, our National Institute of Health, for work of crippled kids in Africa. It just doesn't flow out of that model. So we have to do a lot more advocacy work to show that it really does matter, that research is our major funder for our IGOT organization doesn't want to give a penny towards research. So we have to kind of tweak it and in a way that they give us money and we kind of pay for some things that are research, but we don't put that into the spreadsheet that says that we're using that money to help with. And so it's going to probably take a while for those. Again, perhaps the Gates Foundation, perhaps some other big enlightened people will start to loosen up the purse strings. But unfortunately, we're still at the stage where we have to show clinically we're making a difference and not research it. So, Dr. Cooper, I'm interested in your perspective. Canadian governments is far more interested in letting go of some money that are more global than the American institutes.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things we can do is we can provide the infrastructure and kind of the fairly simple web-based data entry, and a little bit of funding can go a long way in terms of funding somebody who can input that data into a REDCap registry that's via the internet. We face similar problems. We do have some funding from CIHR, which is Canadian Institute for Health Research, which we can give overseas. And we have a lot of funding from our foundation. We faced a very similar challenge with our foundation to not want to fund tangible devices. But over time, we've managed to kind of persuade them of the importance of research. And then with that comes the ability to disseminate some of this funding to other sites where there really is no infrastructure there, but the potential for the salary of a research assistant in Uganda is very different to the salary of a research assistant in Canada. So it goes a long way compared to what we would fund if we were funding that in North America.
Great, thanks. Norgrove, you had your hand up.
This is a related question, I think, for Tony. Those of us working in countries like Uganda can show you and probably give to your database all kinds of interesting cases that we see and treat. But once treated, we just can't track them down for follow-up. They disappear back to the villages. I have so little work on follow-up. How are they 3 years, 5 years out? How are you coping with that particular aspect of your research in your databases?
Yeah, I think that's a real challenge. And I think really where that comes from is partnering with local partners. So for example, in Rwanda, there's a program, which is an outreach program from Kigali to other sites where they are going to do chronic osteomyelitis work. And within that, lots of people come, but it's very difficult for people to come to follow up. But by going out to those areas proactively on a regular basis, is a way to try to reduce some of that loss to follow-up.
Great. Tony, can I ask a follow-up question? I've sort of seen your LIMQ questionnaire. It's really impressive. And like you said, it's really well thought of. The issue, of course, is the survey burden. And, how often can somebody do that? And, do you do it at different time points? So, and a related question is, let's think about, CAT or computer adaptive technology. Is that something that, LIMQ and other prompts are, we could adapt that for those kind of outcome measures?
Yeah, so I think that those two questions are linked, because one of the reasons why there's a number of factors towards burden from questionnaire burden, and one is understanding the utility of that. So if you're being asked 50 questions and really there's only 4 or 5 that really truly resonate with you, then you're not going to be very invested in filling in those questionnaires on a regular basis. But if you've got a questionnaire where every question has a significant impact, is relevant on the significant impacts of your daily life, then I think that, I would hope, can't prove it yet, but I would hope that would increase your willingness to participate. Then I think we have to be very mindful about when the key time points are that we approach people for these. And we have systems to do this, and we have like automated, everyone has an email address or a smartphone, so we have automated ways that we can do this. And then you have to look at the interaction. And there was a few avenues as to do that, all of which are in development at the moment. The computer adaptive learning may be something that we can do with LIMQ kids, but that would potentially change the scores, because right now the scores are for each individual framework and each individual domain. And then the final thing is that you don't necessarily have to go through all 5 domains. Each domain has a separate score, so it's not like you have a global score. So if we really want to just be really dialed down to it, maybe you just want to look at school function or physical function or appearance. And so if you want to target it to get the balance between a child wanting to fill in the questionnaire and also kind of the kind of willingness to do that, and then sometimes there's a compromise there, and sometimes that is just a subscale rather than the whole PRO.
Got it. We got a couple of minutes before the break, so anybody has other? Yeah, Matthew, please.
Yeah, a comment on the working with government and corruption. I have an NGO, we work only with the government. And the measure of success of that program has been that we are able to partner despite all that people say about corruption, without a single penny being paid to any official, to be able to reach out to every state government in India. It is doable only if you show that you are able to do some benefit to the patients and they see value in that. It is possible. On the other side, I don't think you should let corruption dissuade you from working in an area. I learned this, my teacher, he was criticizing on corruption. And a person in the US, in Washington, he said, "What the hell are you talking about? Pardon my language." I'm quoting him. He said, "I'm alive because of corruption." And how was that? He was a Jew in Germany who bribed his way out of a ghetto and became alive. While I'm not recommending corruption, but look at that, there are ways in which people operate, and we shouldn't be dissuaded by that and not work in an area because there is corruption.
Very, very profound thoughts. Thank you, Matthew. And by the way, Matthew's done a lot of work on clubfoot and, spreading that out, teaching and training across the subcontinent. And, if you have time towards the end of the day, which is the middle of the night for Matthew, maybe he can share some thoughts on that. All right, I think this has been a great first session, and I'm really looking forward to the next one, because now we get into the whole listening from all our partners in different parts of the world, and that'll be great. So we'll see you guys back in about 10 to 12 minutes. We'll start sharp at 9, and for the speakers, you'll be screen sharing. So you'll give your talks from your computers. Okay, great. Siri, any last minute announcements? She's saying something in the chat.
Just that we'll start our break, and if everyone can turn off their cameras, and I'll share my break slides.
Good, perfect.